Welcome to my channel. This is going to be a message about the times, about self-mastery, about mastery, and especially for all light workers and anyone who identifies with being a starseed or a healer or a light worker of any kind, a twin flame. And I want to talk about definitions and about why it is important to set aside the labels and set aside the definitions that we get when we start going into the spiritual path, when we start to develop our skills as light workers, as healers. And I'm going to talk to you about why it is important to let go of that at one point, and why this is beneficial for your overall advancement and growth and spiritual growth. So this is going to be more of a spiritual talk and message. Or more focused on your spiritual path more than anything. But it also goes into all areas, of course, of our lives. So I will try to use some examples and give you some practical advice for you to be able to understand this better. So if you want, you can just take a deep breath in and start to relax. Start to attune to the energies that are coming through my voice. And if you want, you can close your eyes. And I will start talking about the energies. So part of what we're going through right now in this month of December, as I said in the community tab, we're coming to this 12/12 gateway. We have the Gemini full moon, and there is a lot of number sequences happening between the 1 and the 2. And for me, this is a sign of bringing all into oneness, bringing all the different aspects and coming into one and coming into balance. And of course for divine counterparts, but also for the spiritual and the material aspect, for our divinity and our human selves, this is all the same for men and women, for masculine and feminine polarity coming together, coming to balance. So remember that we are multidimensional beings. And this is part of what this whole talk is going to be about. Because when we start in the spiritual journey, we are, especially if you are a light worker, we go through many stages and we go through different processes. And, well, it actually looks like a process. And there are techniques, there are methods, there are things that you can learn. There is so much information. There are the old teachings. There are so many different spiritual teachings and modalities, and a lot of new teachings that are coming in as well. But if you started on your journey a couple of years ago, you probably found yourself going through discovering different, perhaps healing techniques and modalities, perhaps different kinds of meditations, and going from one place to another. And before, when I started waking up, what I saw was that there was this tendency to discover a spiritual path and to stick with it. So there were many people that went, for example, into Buddhism, and especially from the Western world. There are still many people, for example, in Europe that went into shamanic traditions, and I was a witness to this because I lived in Germany, and I was fascinated by the fact that so many people in Germany and so many Europeans would be really, really interested in following the path of shamanism from the Mexico and from the old Mexico. So when we start, we are drawn to something that really grabs our attention, right? So like everything in our path, everything is designed just the same way that you see numbers now, number sequences, and that you're drawn to certain places at certain times, or perhaps you wake up at the same time every night, or you're drawn to certain configurations of numbers. These are just ways of our higher self to communicate to our human self. Because we as humans, the more we are in the 3D, the more we are on this planet, on this earth, with this linear time, and especially coming from the past and all the constructs that are built and all the, let's say, control mechanisms that were used or that have been used by centuries through the patriarchal model, but also through the power systems, politics, religion, everything. So we come to a place that has so many rules and regulations and constrictions, and it's so defined in a way. But when we come as a child, and that is why I always love to bring you back to that time when you were a child, because this was the point where you were still very fresh out of the higher dimensions and less contaminated, let's say, or less impacted by the rules and the systems and the construct and the reality that is built in the 3D, which is actually a constructed reality. But when we come into this world, we come with this higher knowledge. We are connected to Source much more than afterwards, right? The more we are here, it's like this kind of amnesia kicks in, where we start to believe everything that is presented, and we start to forget our intrinsic knowledge. We start to forget our innate. But when we are kids, we're still pretty much in touch with that innate part. We're still pretty much in touch with our guides. Many of us can see our guides, our angels, our guardians. Many of us can see and perceive energy when we're children. It's very funny because when I was a child, I would see my guides and I would be able to communicate with them in a very childlike way, of course, very innocent way, but I would see them and I would see that they were always with me, and when I needed them, I would call upon them. And many times I was kind of saved by them, or that's how I interpreted it, how I saw it, that I was about to fall and then something would grab me or something would happen and I would get help and things like that. And I have seen that in small children. I see that now. And I can also see how they see me and how they see my energy. So children, if you observe them, if you take the time to be with them, they can see beyond reality. They can see beyond dimensions. And the same is true for children or for people who have mental disabilities. For example, my brother, you know that he has mental paralysis and he has the mentality of a 4-year-old. I have talked about this before. But what he has is that through this innocence, through this connection to his innate, because he because of his condition, he's not, he cannot be molded into societal constrictions and constraints. So this has kept his freedom and his freedom of all the things, the imprints that we have. Of course, perhaps not all of them, because of course there are parts of him that are conscious and that are as malleable as any of us. But through this contact to his innate, through that part that is still very much there with him and with all the children that I have observed that have any kind of mental disabilities, because of growing up with my brother, I came into contact with so many. They maintain that part of being able to communicate with the higher realms and being able to just be tapped into their multidimensionality. So sometimes when I'm talking to my brother or when he's talking to someone, he will start staring at them, but not just to their eyes, but he will kind of stare like in the head. And when he looks at you, you know that he knows who you are. He knows exactly if a person is sad, if a person is angry. He will look at you and see through whatever facade is there, whatever, maybe sometimes when I didn't want him to know that I was sad, I would pretend that I was very happy, and he would just see right through me and ask me, how are you? Are you okay? Why are you sad? And things like that. So he can see that in all people. And this is something, this quality of being in touch with the innate is something that we all have. But we lose to a certain degree when we grow up and we start to replace this being in touch, this freedom and this being in touch with our intuition. We start replacing it by fear or by different models of what is wrong, what is right, how things are and how things aren't. To give you an example of this, when I was little, I had this knowing that I could fly, right? So I was very small, but I always, flying was a very important part for me. I don't know, consciously I didn't know where I had that from, but I just knew that I could fly, and I would fly every night in my dreams. But I also wanted to fly here in reality. So when I was about 5, I started practicing, because I told my mother I want to fly, and or I told my father, I want to fly, and my father always makes jokes, and he kind of told me, well, if you want to fly, you should practice. So I started practicing every day, and I would jump from a couch, and I would see how far I would jump. And I did this for 1 week or 2 weeks, and at the end of the second week, I thought, I'm ready to fly. I can jump. I'm jumping much higher. I think I'm ready. So at the end of that, I went into my room at the time, and I opened the window, and I was about to jump with full trust that I was going to be able to fly, and my babysitter came in running and grabbed my legs and basically saved me from falling from a 2-story window. After that, of course, my parents were freaking out and they were very concerned but angry, and they were yelling at me of what was I thinking. And I told them, well, you told me that I needed to practice and then I could fly. And I remember my mother told me, yes, you can fly, but you can fly in your dreams. You cannot fly here in reality, but you can fly in your dreams. So I was, of course, very sad to learn about this, but there was a part of me inside that knew that I was able to fly somehow or some way in another dimension, in another place, that I had been able to fly. And the same way I would fly in my dreams all the time. So that was for me one of the first lessons that I got from the constrictions or the restrictions of being in a physical body and being here on earth and being in a place where there is gravity, where there is linear time, where there is so many things that, of course, to the soul that is unbound, that doesn't know time and space, a soul can travel everywhere, right? And it's like the movement or whatever, it's like flying, let's say, or it could be like flying. So this was one of the first lessons that I got from the 3D. And then the second one was when I found out about death. And I don't remember exactly what I saw. I think it was a movie or something. And I was also very, very little. And I asked my father, well, what happens when we die? Like, where is my grandmother? Because my grandmother had passed. And where are they going? And my father, he is, well, kind of Catholic, but he's really not. Like, my parents are not really, have no like spiritual like tradition or lineage. And he told me, well, we just die and, you just disappear. And when he told me that, I was in shock. And I think I cried like for 3 days. And I was horrified and terrified of death. And I would, from that moment on, I couldn't sleep. I had a very difficult time falling asleep because I would think in my head what it would feel like not to exist. And I just felt a very deep, like, void in my heart. And I knew deep down this was so wrong. I thought, no, this is not fair. And I was pretty angry at this realization or at this information given by my father. And so what I did is I talked to God, because I always talked to God since I have memory. I would talk to God every night. And my parents thought, what's wrong with our kid? She's talking to God every night. We don't even believe in anything. We don't even have like a strong foundation in any religion or in any spiritual belief, and our daughter here is talking to God every night. So I talked to God and I asked him what was going on, if this was true or not. And I remember that I saw my angels come in and they told me, we are always with you. We will always be with you. And wherever you go, we are always there. And they kind of showed me this, or I was brought into a place where there was this sensation of infinity, of eternity, and of how my soul was eternal. So of course at the moment I was too small to fully grasp it, but this like vision gave me this peace where I knew that I was always going to be safe, because no matter where I was going to be protected by these angels. So when we grow up, many of us have these kind of experiences, and after a while we forget, because we start to receive so much information, and we start to the part of our ego starts to kick in, the part of survival, the part of fear, all these things that come through our lineage, through our heritage, through our parents, through their conditioning. All of what they have is brought onto us. So all of a sudden we start feeling fears that they have that we didn't even know we had, or that we didn't have before. And we start receiving a lot of these fear patterns, death codes, conditioning. And when this happens, we start to tap in more into the 3D, and we start to believe more all of the 3D constructs because we think that we need to be prepared, we need to learn all of this in order to be able to survive in this world. So many of us in that period of time kind of disconnect from that innocence, from that innate part of us, and from our divine aspect, actually, which is always in us, but we kind of disconnect from that wisdom that comes from within, because we think that everyone else has the wisdom because we are young, because we are children, because we are coming in new and we don't remember. So when we start in the process of in a spiritual path, we start the process of remembering who we are. I remember when I went to my first meditation class, and it was actually a self-healing meditation course that I landed in because of many coincidences. It was the first like reconnection that I had consciously to the spiritual world, after I had been a little bit disconnected through my adolescence and in this rebellious mode. But when I was 17, I came into this to this course because I was going through a bad disease, and I was in a lot of pain. And through a cousin of mine who is also a healer, I came to this course. And I remember that nowadays when I think about it, I'm like, I went from zero, from like forgetting everything, to full on a course where we were channeling ancient healing techniques from Egypt and talking about sacred geometry and numerology and quantum healing and holographic healing and the Merkaba and the ascended masters and the galactic beings and the starseeds. And I was just listening to the teacher, and I thought, what is this? I thought, I don't understand anything of what she's saying and how all of these different paradigms are actually together commingling here in this course. I don't understand. But when I did the first meditation in that course, I understood everything. When I sat down and meditated for like 2 hours, I went into the place of my childhood. I went into the innate. I went into my higher self. I went into that knowledge. And all of a sudden, everything made sense. And I felt like I was home. So from that day on, I never stopped meditating, and I never stopped this spiritual path. So of course, curiosity started growing, and I started to go through all of these different techniques. And this is something that usually happens, especially if you're a light worker. It's like you find the Holy Grail and you want to learn everything about it, and you want to dig deeper, and you want to find out all the other methods that are there, all this magic. It's like, for me, it was like the world of my childhood was opened again, and everything that I knew when I was a child came back. And I started to have visions again. I started to see my angels again. I started to see energy again. Of course, there also came all the shadow parts of this, because when I was a child, I would also see like dark energies. The same way that I would see angels and light, I would also see dark energies. So this came in again, and everything, all of this was activated in that one moment when I meditated. So it was a bit overwhelming, and after 3 days I came back to the teacher and I said, I'm quitting. I don't want to do this anymore. This is too much. All of the things that are coming, I'm scared again, like when I was a child and I couldn't sleep. I'm seeing these things. And I remember she told me, you're awakened, okay? There's just one way through. Either you want to go back to sleep, or you go through the darkness in order to be your light. And you go through the path of knowledge, and you go and you learn who you really are. And I remember she told me, if you only knew who you are. And I think she also told me something like, you're going to help a lot of people, and some other things, that these are things that now I understand, because now when I see some of my students, or I see some of the people that I work with, some of my clients for healing, I can also see that in them. I see that they are going to be great healers, or I can see that they're going to become a great spokesperson, or that they're going to help a lot of people. But of course, when you are still in some fog, you're still in the process of rediscovering who you are, you're not there yet. You're not in the full awareness yet. So the path of spirituality for me is a way of getting to know yourself again and retrieving the knowledge that you lost, perhaps due to conditioning, due to trauma, due to hardship, due to anything that you might have lived, and not only in this lifetime but in other lifetimes. So we heal at a quantum level. When we are in the healing path, in the spiritual journey, we heal at a quantum level. We heal in different dimensions. We heal at a multidimensional level. So we not only heal the physical body, we heal the mental body, the emotional, the spiritual, the atmic, buddhic, all the etheric bodies, and it goes on and on until infinity. So depending what is meant for us to heal, we heal that. So our path is somehow designed, let's say it's designed by our soul, and we all have a very, very special and very unique path, a very unique path of awareness, of waking up. Some may wake up and then go back to sleep for a couple of years and then wake up again. I have seen this happen too. And the point for me is not to judge your process, not to compare it to other people, and not to be discouraged if you know that you can see, if you know if you know from your innate that you have clairvoyant abilities, for example, and they're not showing up yet. If you know that from your innate, if you know that from that innocent part in you, trust me, they will develop at the right time for you. They will develop when it's time for you to make use of them, when it's time for you to serve, and when your guides know, and you know, your higher self knows that you are ready to receive that. And in the same way, we can talk about the twin flame process. And I get so many questions about, first of all, what is twin flame? And then the people who already know or that have looked out some information, then it's a lot about who is my twin flame? When will he come here? When will we be in union? And what I always try to take you back to is to your own knowledge about that. I will not tell you this is your twin flame or this is not your twin flame. I will not go through that road because I don't think that anyone else has more knowledge than you about what you are going through, and especially about your love, and especially about your connection. And the twin flame journey ties to your spiritual path. So what I do is, when I get these questions, when I work with people in the twin flame, especially through the twin flame, or especially wherever that is, I have an holistic approach to it. I see all the parts of you, and we go and we heal the parts that are ready to heal, the parts that your field, that your innate, that your energy is presenting to be healed, that will lead you, that will guide you to your highest path, to the highest outcome for now, and that will ultimately guide you to your twin flame. It will guide you to your awakening your abilities. It will guide you to your own healing. It will guide you to your own knowing of yourself. So when I work with patients or with students, My goal and my priority is that you come into your own knowledge, that I help you to develop your relationship to your innate, to your wisdom, to your innocence, to your capacity of love and expansion. Because the one that is running the show is you. Your soul is running the show. So what I facilitate is ways and paths and tools and healing for you to be able to connect more fully with your soul, so that your soul can take the lead again instead of your ego. And when your soul takes the lead, you start to discover who you really are. You start to learn and to develop all of your gifts. You open up, and all that comes out is miracles. Because this is something that is always in you. One of the things that happens in the spiritual paradigm is that we start to see it as a process, but we start to see it as a linear process. And I can tell you from experience, and I have told this story before, that I went through many modalities of healing, and I learned many types of different healings. But then what happened was, and this was a crucial point, and I don't think I have talked about this enough, or I don't think I even have talked about this. After I learned all of these methods, and I went into all of these different spiritual paths, and I learned so much about this, and took what I needed, and I started to really internalize the teachings, but I took the parts of the teachings that were helpful for me. When I started to come more into my power, I understood that some teachings were disempowering to me. I understood that some teachers were not helping me anymore. I started to doubt. There was even a point where I was doubting all of the spiritual teachings, because I saw that there were so many steps to take, there were so many rules to follow, there were so many kind of like judgments, and especially in the spiritual community. Like, if you eat meat, you are this. If you have to be vegetarian, you have to not drink alcohol, you have to be super healthy, you have to do yoga, you have to meditate 4 hours a day, or you have to surrender your ego, you have to, and so many of these things are very helpful, and they are incredible to practice and to learn, and to and there are some things that are very good to conquer, but the motivation behind it is the most important thing. Because sometimes when we are in the spiritual journey and we are caught up in pain and we're caught up in many things, we think, okay, they're giving me a recipe, so I will do this and this and this, and then I will feel happy, and then I will feel whole. If I do this and this and this, I will get to my twin flame. If I do this and this and this, I will manifest whatever I need, all my dreams in reality. And this is actually very, very far from the truth, and very, very far from how the spiritual path actually works. And this is why so many people that come into a spiritual path, there comes a time where they get very disappointed, because they are not seeing the results that they want in their 3D lives, because the knowledge hasn't been integrated by the soul, or because the ego is walking the spiritual path. So when the ego is walking the spiritual path, we can see that in the way some teachers teach. For example, I have followed some teachings and some teachers, and then at a certain point I realized I don't want to follow this person anymore, because they're caught up in their own spiritual ego, or because the teaching approach is not heart-centered. It's not bringing more love to my reality, to my experience, and to my practice, but it's causing more pain. So this is why your connection to your self, to your innate, to your knowledge. This is where the power of your full transformation lies. This is where all the answers are. This is where you know who your twin flame is. This is where you know what modality of healing works for you. This is where you know what your gifts are. This is where you start to know and to give yourself the chance to become the teacher that you are, the master that you came here to be. This is what self-mastery is. And this is what the new spiritual paradigm is for me. I want you all to be empowered. I want you all to be trusting your own knowledge, your intuition. And this intuition is your connection to your innate. And it's not just the intuition of your heart, of your soul, but it is also when you tap into your innate, into your soul, you tap into all the knowledge and the wisdom that is stored in your Akash, in your Akashic records. So I know that many people go to have Akashic readings, for example, or they go to a reader of the Akash. But you are the reader of your Akash. You carry the Akash inside of you. You don't need anybody else to tell you how your life has been, who you were in past lifetimes, and who you are now. This is something that only you know. This is something that you can discover every second, every day of your life. The way that you tap into this innate, the way that you tap into your Akash is by the simplest way is you don't even have to sit down 4 hours and meditate. Of course, meditation is very good, and of course any spiritual practice that brings you into balance and peace is very good, because balance and relaxation and peace allows you to be in a state where you are connected to your innate and to your Akash. The more you are in a balanced space, the more you it's like you amplify that connection. And right now, as the spiritual beings that we are, as the light bearers, as light workers, as healers, we are asked to step into that connection to our innate, to be the channel of light every single second of our lives. There is no more turning on and turning off. Of course, when we start in the journey, when we start to be able to tap into our abilities, and it happens like it happened to me, for example, that it was quite overwhelming. I had to learn some techniques in order to be able to not tap into everything and into everyone, because there was so much information that it was overwhelming to me. So I had to develop my own way of turning off let's say the input of receiving all of this information. I would just learn how to turn it off and turn it on when I needed it. So I would turn it on when I was talking to a person that needed my help, or when I was doing healings, or when I was just offering any kind of kindness or service to someone. I would turn it on, but in the meantime I would try to turn it off because it was too much. But as I continued my journey, it started to balance and to regulate. And the more I purified and cleansed and all of this, perhaps the shadow aspects and the darkness started to leave my field, which is a process that is ongoing and that I'm still going through, that we're all going through collectively. As we let go of the old, more light can come in. And because this light that comes in is a benevolent force, it's a benevolent, intelligent, it's more consciousness, we start to become more conscious about how to handle these very fine processes within us. And we start to be able to understand the relationship of our third dimensional selves to our other dimensional selves. So from the 5D, which is what everyone talks about, but we go into the 12D and into all the dimensions. So right now we are in a moment where we're accessing all of these other parts of ourselves, but these are always, they have always been a part of us. And sometimes we think that if we do this and this and this in the spiritual world, we are going to like what they say, do all of these meditations and you will activate your pineal gland, you will decalcify this and you will activate this. And sure, there are practices that are helpful, but this is all seen through the linear eye, through the process of linear of learning things in a linear way. But because we are open now to learning things in a multidimensional way, we can do a shortcut, and we can, instead of learn so many years of learning all these different techniques in order to be able to heal ourselves, we can tap into our innate, tap into our consciousness, tap into God and say, God, give me the steps of what I need to do. God, guide me and give me step by step of what I need to do to become the healer, to become the master that I am, to discover myself, to be the one that I am, that I am that I am. And this will open you up to a new way of learning, to a new way of evolving, and to a new way of experiencing your reality. Because you are calling forward your higher self. You're calling your higher self into the body. You're embodying your divinity. And you're receiving all of the knowledge that you have gained through thousands and thousands of lifetimes. But in order to do this, we have to be able to trust, and to really trust in the divine, to really trust in ourselves, in the highest part of ourselves, in our innate. So this is a message for you to know and to understand that no matter how limited your reality may seem on the 3D, if you work on your innate, if you work in your connection with your innate, that is the key to the kingdom of God on earth. That is the key to all your gifts, to all your potentials being developed. And time is not a factor in that. When we do healing, you very slowly start to understand that everything that you have learned was a way for you to tap in to your own knowledge about things, to tap into knowing yourself and knowing how energy works and knowing certain things. But really, if we look at it in a very blunt way, there is actually no process. There are just a lot of miracles happening. There is just an unveiling to the truth of who we are. And when you wake up to that truth, and you wake up to that power, you understand that nothing is really linear. So, for example, in healing, this is a very good example. When we heal, you can learn where all the chakras are. You can learn the colors that they have. You can learn, everyone wants to learn the definitions of everything. How many colors do we have? How many auras do we have? How do the auras look like? And this is all a very, of course, very beautiful process of learning. But if I tell you that when you that you have the capacity to change everything, we are not linear beings. So the colors of our chakras are constantly changing. The shapes of our chakras are constantly changing. The amount of energy that is in our chakras is constantly changing and being adjusted, because we're living beings, because we react to our environment and vice versa, and because we receive energy, we give energy. So everyone tells you, oh, maybe the heart chakra is green and this is this and the energy is that. But these are just ways of defining things that are abstract and that are not really measurable in a rational way. Because in our capacity as humans, we are not able, like through the rationality, through the mind, we are not able to understand how things are happening simultaneously, how our whole life is happening in this very moment, how we are multidimensional and existing in different realities, how there are parts of ourselves that are doing completely different things, and how everything is playing out together. So the only thing that you need to know in order to advance is that everything is working together. So learning how the parts work may be helpful for some things, but it's not really helpful for the highest advancement that you can have in this moment. When we start to see things through multidimensionality, which is how I heal today, for example, how I see the body, we understand that time and space are not an issue. So that is why distant healing works. This is why I can be here in Mexico and have patients from all over the world, and when I connect to them, I can feel where their heart is, I can measure their energy, I can measure their chakras, I can feel if they have a headache, I can feel into all of these different things. But I don't do this through the mind, I do this through the soul, and I do this through my innate and through my innate capacity. So what I encourage you to do is to tap into your innate capacity. And you will say, well, how do I do that? Where is my innate capacity? Your innate capacity is in your connection to God and in the love you have for yourself. So love is the shortcut to become enlightened, or to become more aware, to develop. The more we are tapped into love, the more we can hold love in our hearts, the more we can tap into that wisdom of love that is within us. That source will always guide you to your highest outcome, to your fastest development, and to your highest mission. And the only thing that you need to do is to sit down and ask God, God, guide me. God, show me the way. God, show me the steps that I need to take to my highest development now. God, show me the steps that I need to take to be connected to my innate. God, show me how I can heal this person right now. God, show me how I can heal myself right now. And you can ask God and divinity to help you to do anything that you are wanting to do, because you are God. This is the part of the spiritual teachings that is always kind of left aside, because even though we hear that all the time, you're God, we're all one, God is in you, we are not really consciously integrating that knowledge. So this is the first part that is crucial. If God is all-seeing, all-knowing, if God is almighty, if God is in everything, and God is the source of everything. If I am God, why wouldn't I be able to heal myself? Why wouldn't I be able to know what's best for me? Why wouldn't I be able to perform miracles? So many of the answers why is because of all these mental constructs that we have, and all this lack mentality, all these programs and all of these things. So part of the healing journey is just removing those programs, those blockages, those constraints through the mind, so the mind can be set free and we can tap into the heart. When we heal as healers, and I just talk about my personal experience, when I heal, I am not tapping into my head and into the knowledge that I acquired in my healing journey or in learning healing modalities. I tap into my heart and I tap into God and I say, God, what does this person need right now? How can I serve this person today? Show me. And then I get all the images, all the information, all the steps, all the guidance that I need to be able to perform a healing. So it's really just being open to receive all of this from God, and to receive this also from myself, from my higher self, and from my innate, which translates the information so that my human mind and my human self can understand it and can do something with that information. So every healing is completely different, and it depends on the other person who is on the higher self, on the other person who is giving me the information that I need, and God also, and just opening up for God to do His work and to give me the steps. And of course, when we start healing, the most difficult part and the initiation, that self-initiation that I would call the most important ceremony, is when you take the leap of faith and you trust the guidance that you're receiving. This is the most important moment as a healer, or even in the self-healing process. The moment that you trust yourself against all odds, against better knowing, against all the things that your mind is telling you, against all the fear that your ego is infusing in you. The moment that you just give permission to meld with God and to be God and to trust whatever comes and to act upon that knowledge that you're receiving. That is a moment that for me is the initiation of the healer. It is the initiation of the awakened one. It is a moment that you trust yourself over all, that you trust your divinity and your soul over all. And that is also just trusting God, because that is trusting the God that you are, the God within you. When you do that, miracles are available. You don't even need to have studied healing or knowing healing modalities or even meditated or even anything. When you surrender to God and you tap into your innate capacity, into your innate knowing, all of the knowledge that you have acquired through different lifetimes, through different through your starseed family, through your starseed lineage, through your galactic lineage, everything comes into you in that moment, and you're able to perform miracles. And I have seen this, and I'm talking about personal experience in this. To give you an example of this, there was a time when I was living in Berlin where one of my friends, she caught herself working. She was a bartender and she caught herself working. And she came home and she asked me to accompany her to the ER. So we went to the ER. It was in the morning, and we were sitting in this waiting room, and we were told that we would have to just wait indefinitely because there were many other patients that were receiving attention. So we had been sitting there for like 3 hours, and the moment I got there, I started to just send healing to all the people that were waiting in the waiting room. And of course I was also doing healing to my friend because she had pain in her finger. But then she calmed down, and I was just there. And all of a sudden this woman comes in, and she's crying and screaming and shouting, and you could see in her face she was in so much pain. And she sat in front of me, and she was crying, and she her family talked to the nurses, and she wanted to go in, and they told her to wait. I heard all of that, right? So they told her to wait, and that she had been there the day before. And she told him, yes, I was here the day before, because she had a 3rd-degree burn in all her arm, in her whole right arm. She had spilled cooking beans, boiling beans into all of her forearm, into all of her arm. And she had 3rd-degree burns, and she was telling the nurses that they were infected and that she was in so much pain. And the nurses said, just wait, and they didn't care, and they just told her to sit down. And she was sitting down, and she was crying and trying not to cry and trying not to scream of the pain she had. So I just received the input to go to her. And I said, God, if I can help her, please make me an instrument of the healing that she needs right now. And so I went over to her, and I asked her if she would allow me, if she wanted me to do healing on her, because I could maybe perhaps help her ease the pain while she was waiting. And she was in so much pain, and she was actually a Turkish woman, and she was covered with this veil in her head. I think she was like, I don't know exactly how they're called, but like very orthodox or something. So she was very like in a religious path, right? So I was hesitant to ask her, because I thought maybe she will tell me that I'm crazy, or that this healing is not from God or something like that, because of the old spiritual paradigm. But nonetheless, I went over and I asked her, and she just looked at me and told me, yes, please. So I immediately started just working on her arm, and I was just guided to move my hands in certain ways and to ease the pain and to remove I felt the energy. I even started to heat up just to feel the energy of heat that was coming from her skin. So I started working and doing. I didn't even, in that moment, I completely forgot all the things that I had learned in my healing classes, because it was so much, it was so needed, that I just said, God, just please guide me. So I started working on her and just receiving the guidance from God and trusting, even though a part of me was doubting everything, and a part of me was saying, maybe everyone here thinks that I'm crazy, and maybe this won't even be helpful. But I was just telling God, please allow me to bring healing to this woman, and to ease her pain. And I continued with that focus, and 10 minutes passed, and I started doubting, because she was still in pain, and I started doubting. And then 11 minutes passed, or something like that, and all of a sudden, her face was relaxed, her head was leaning back, and she was just breathing in calmly. And I felt the shift, in her energy. And so I continued, and I asked God to continue to guide me and to do whatever I needed to do to help her even more, to ease the pain even more, and to really leave her with this peace while she had to wait. And I continued to heal her, and I think I was there for like 20 minutes straight. The time went by so fast, I didn't even realize how much time had passed until my friend told me that we had to go. So I looked at her, and she looked at me, and I asked her, how are you feeling? And she said she was feeling good. And I asked her, do you think you can wait now until it's your turn? And she said, yes, I'm not feeling pain anymore. And she just said thank you, and she asked me for my phone number. And I just told her, that this was God, and I don't even remember what I told her, but I just felt as grateful as her to have been able to do that. And I knew that it was partly her, it was partly me, and everything was God just acting through. So when I left there, I knew that I had just witnessed a miracle. Because, as much as we can rationalize everything, and we can even rationalize our spiritual journey and the things that we learned through our spiritual journeys, and as much as we can have certain information and have certain rules in our brain, in our minds, what is really happening to us right now as spiritual beings that we are is that we are gaining mastery, and we are starting to tap into our multidimensionality, into all of our capacities. And the main force that is driving this is love, is to be able to feel love for other people, to be able to feel love for ourselves, to be able to feel compassion and kindness. The more you nurture this, the more the opportunities will come for you to assist others and to heal yourself. The more you love yourself and you love other people and you love everything, no matter what the face of it is, no matter how horribly it may be presenting in your 3D life, the more you can go inward and love everything that is happening, everything that you are, the easier you will be tapped into your innate, into your Akash, and the easier life will become, the more peaceful and balanced life will become, and the more you will be able to advance and to heal and to become the person and the being that you are, the divine being that you are. So this also pertains to the twin flame journey, because everything that happens in our journey is designed. Everything is there for a reason. And sometimes we need to have these inspirations of love, because what does your twin flame inspire in you? Love. And what is the force that is driving you to heal yourself and to do all of this self-knowledge and to hear this message and to be in YouTube looking for information on how to become a better person, or how to become your divine self, and how to become the divine feminine, how to become the divine masculine? The energy that is behind everything is love. The energy that drives you and that makes you want to be in union is love, because in the end, union is love. We are always in union with everything, but we are just not able to see it. But the more that we tap into that and we use it and we really allow God to be in our 3D lives, the more we call it forward. Just the way that I said, God, show me what I need to do. God, allow me to heal this. God, show me the steps that I need to take. God, I am ready to be healed from this. Please heal me. We have so much support. We are so supported by our guides, by our guardians. But the ones who are doing everything is us. Even the information that we channel, even the miracles that we perform, this is all coming from our innate. I know that many healers and channelers, they always say, they told me, and I have even said that, right? When our guides tell us things, or I received this message from my guides, or my guides told me, or they said. But really, your guides are there. They're always there. They're always with you, your guardians, your angels. But the one who is giving you the messages, and their messages are coming from your innate, and they're coming from your Akash, and they're coming from you, from the master that you are. You are the master, you are the guide, you are the teacher. But we have this way from the old spiritual paradigm, we have this way of making ourselves smaller somehow, or thinking that we are the smallest part or the smallest piece of the puzzle. But we are actually all the pieces of the puzzle. So tap into that now, please. Tap into that innocence. Tap into the love that you are. Tap into your mastery. And trust me, and the more you ask yourself what you want to know, the more you let your higher self answer you what you need to know, the more you ask your mundane questions to God and to your higher self, instead of asking, 3,000 readers or 3,000 healers, or, watching thousands of things in YouTube. The more you ask yourself, the more you will receive the advancements, the more you will receive the answers, and the more you will be able to come into union with yourself, and the more you will be able to come into union with everything. And you will see, you will know who your twin flame is. You will know who you are. We cannot expect to know the world through other people, through other things. We have to know the world through our own minds, through our own hearts, through our own souls, through our own perspective, and to honor that perspective. That is why your uniqueness is so important. That is why you are so important. Who you are, how you see the world, how things play out for you. That is why you have all the answers in you. That is why you are the one who is directing your path. And this is what you will do, and what you will show, and what you will guide other people to do. The more you become your light, you will be able to help others become their own light. We are not here to create more dogma. We are not here to create any enslavement programs. We are not here to create codependency. We are not here to create half things. We are here to be whole, to show up fully, to be the masters of light. And of course, we all need reflections from other people. We need to see ourselves, and we learn from others, and we learn from others' experiences, and we learn from teachings. This is all great, but the filter and the one who knows what is beneficial for you at a given moment in time and what isn't, what you are working with, what is ready to be healed or not, all of this knowledge, all of this insight is within you. And you can access it because this is your divine birthright. This is who we are. We are able to access our higher consciousness. We are able to access our higher self. We are able to access the love. We are able to access magic, miracles. And all of the things that show up in your reality as signs, as synchronicities, as events, as people, they're all showing you the same thing. They're all there for you to discover who you are, for you to own and to be who you came here to be, to know who you are. And this will bring you to everything. This will bring you to your highest destiny and your highest mission. So, I think I went a little bit long this time. But I hope this message helps you understand. I hope this message helps you remember and regain your confidence, your love, your wisdom, and anything that you have lost along the way. Because we have gone through the ringer. We have gone through everything. Especially all of you who are old souls, and you know that in your heart. You know who you are. You don't need to define yourself again. You don't need to put labels on you. If you are a twin flame, if you are a light worker, if you are a blue ray or a green ray, or if you are a starseed from this and that. We are all everything. You are all of those things, I can tell you. We are all everything. But the important thing right now is that you know yourself. And that you let that connection to your soul, to your love, to your innate guide you. Because that is the highest force that can guide you right now. So, I am sending you so much love. I will be back soon with another video. I have been feeling much better today, and I hope this continues. And I'm here for you as always. And please let me know if you need help, and if you want to ask some questions. This is an open community, and this is here for us all to support each other. So please do, if you like these messages, subscribe, comment, share, do whatever you feel guided to do. And I will always try to serve you in a better way and to give you more tools for you to realize who you are, to see the light that you are, because I see that. And it is my wish for all of you that you learn to see that too. Sending you so much love.